Hi, and welcome back to Dirtbag Baseball Talk. Kirk along with Jason, our man as always and stuff. We're pumped to be back and excited for this episode where we're going to be talking about, Jason wants to dive into the realities of lactic acid, Bandwork, and then just do's and don'ts, subtle little do's and don'ts, but really important do's and don'ts for the different age groups from youth to high school to college to the pros. And then we're going to go ahead and next week we're going to get going with talking about pitching specifics. So, but we definitely wanted to cover this area of it because I think it's the important early stages of understanding where we're trying to take you as on your baseball journey, really. So sit back, enjoy. Glad to have you with us. And Jason, let's get after it, buddy. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Talk that lactic acid to me.
Oh man, so even way back when I played and now coaches still don't seem to have a grasp on lactic acid. So it's a byproduct of burning up energy in the body, and it's not a bad thing. And it actually there was a study done in 1936 or 1937. I have it printed off that showed that they refer to it as lactate. So it actually metabolizes in your body within 20 to 30 minutes. So let me say that again, coaches. When you're telling your pitchers the next day, oh, it's that lactic acid. No, it's not a chance, not possible. It's inflammation, which is fine because that's a physiological response. So when you're having your guys run, poles after they pitch to get the lactic acid out, it's already metabolizing in the body. So really all you're doing is you're beating your guys up more. And I can remember sometimes when I'd start out a college season, even in high school sometimes, all that running just beats down your whole body, and now your body's tired and you're trying to throw. So if your body's tired, which you use to get generate force from the ground up and transfer that to your throwing arm, you can't do that. The arm has to work harder, and now you have arm problems. So coaches, stop even talking about lactic acid. You're not doing anything. All you're doing is just beating the kids up worse. So again, it metabolizes in the body within 20 to 30 minutes. It's not sitting there. It's not this evil little thing you've got to stretch out or run out. So yeah, that's it. That's the long and short of it. Just stop talking about it. Kind of like all these fascia obsessed people out there. You can't change it. So
there you go. I hope you heard that and take some time to think about it. It's probably new to you if you haven't heard it. So you know what, again, like we always say, reach out to us. You got questions about it, send them to us. We'll get them off to Jason. You can get him as well. We'll all have that documented under the description area, so you can look that up and find out more information about that and really wrap your head around what Jason was just saying there for sure. So I didn't have it on the docket, Jason, but is that in your mind similar to with, let's talk pitching, icing after they pitch, icing?
So with icing, we can say, ice is not invasive. It's not going to change the temperature under the skin, but if it does stimulate a change in circulation, it could be potentially beneficial. So there's been a big debate. Some people are saying, you shouldn't ice because you need the inflammatory response to heal up that tissue or, get rid of the inflammation. So people go back and forth. To me, I don't think icing is going to do any harm if you want to do it. I mean, you can even alternate ice and heat and do some contrast therapy. But as far as, if it does speed up and help with that inflammatory response, that's a good thing. But we've got to remember, if there's pain, pain is like a check engine light. It's an indicator that something is wrong. So we get into the mindset of, playing through the pain. It's kind of like if the check engine light's on in your car, you don't take it out and drive as fast as you can, try to get a lot of performance out of it, thinking the problem's going to go away. So we do need that inflammatory response. I would say definitely, ice or no ice, not really worth spending time arguing about. If people want to do it, it's not going to harm them. Of course, I would ice to the point where I got frostbite on my skin. So that's probably not a good thing, because you can't tell the coach your arm hurts, because that coach's ego and mind, he's going to tell you, oh, well, we got 10 other guys that'll take your place. And then, sports is a shuffle. So you're kind of done. But I would say, as far as the anti-inflammatories, that's something that definitely, definitely should stop. And I always, a couple other colleagues and I, we always joke and say, oh, I bet, when you took that aspirin for your headache, it's because your body was deficient in aspirin, right? No, it's completely stupid. So when you have pain here from throwing, your body is not deficient in ibuprofen or, aspirin or whatever else you're taking. You're just kind of masking that pain and doing more damage. So that's something that, and then also think about what it's doing to your liver. There were plenty of games where I couldn't throw warming up and I'd, take 5, 6, 7 Aleve ibuprofen and I'm coming into pitch in the fourth. So that's probably why when I have my labs done, my liver enzymes are high because of the damage I've done. And I talked a lot with Kyle Farnsworth about it too. So that's something we're hoping to cut down on with the sleeve is, getting rid of the elbow pain without kids having to take all these anti-inflammatories.
Yeah, completely insane. I know firsthand what you're talking about there, Jason, for sure. I was lucky. I never did it, maybe because I didn't throw hard enough. I don't know, but it was a mindset too. I was like you said, like, my God, if my arm had that type of pain, you're right. Like I got to figure out what the problem is and the reason behind it, and then try to fix that before I'm just popping pills. But my freshman year was my first days of at college. Man, senior pitcher and doing exactly what you were talking about. I see him the one day and all of a sudden he's popping four aspirins into him. I'm going, dude, like, what are you doing? He goes, I can't throw if I don't take them. Like,
Yeah.
he got into that mind trap that he couldn't function on a pitching day without him. And I was like, oh my God, if I ever get to there, I got to stop. Now, thank God I never did or whatever. I didn't get to 1, let alone 4. So great points. I love it. I love what you're talking about for sure. So let's talk about bands. You've said to me off air a lot of great things about Bandwork, and obviously it is used universally now. Is there certain things that you like about the band? Is there recommendations that you would say stay clear of? And what I'm thinking about on that is, especially with a lot of the younger players, coaches get it and they put so much tension on the band before they even do the stretch part of it. There's an overload of tension. And then of course, oh my God, my kid's arm is just falling off. It's falling off. It's falling off. So talk a little bit about bands for us.
So with bands or any type of way you apply resistance to the body. So it could be medicine ball, kettlebell, dumbbell, barbell, elastomers, which is bands. Now we've got, suspension training. That's kind of a buzzword. People always have to stop and think, what is the goal? So when we get out there and I see guys just kind of like rocking their arm with the band. Well, if the mass of your arm is taking the band into that end range, you're not doing anything for the muscular system. So don't think that because it's moving from point A to point B that you're accomplishing anything. Now, if you were to do it at a very slow pace and put tension into that muscular system, then neurologically you're kind of prepping everything. And remember, muscle stabilized joints. So if guys are stretching after doing the band work, you're completely defeating the purpose of what you just did. So the bands are an excellent way to get everything kind of prepped neurologically, get everything, ready to throw, put some tension into that joint. But we've got to think, how are we going to do that? What is the goal? So you can do it at a really slow pace at end range, or you can go to end range and kind of hold that isometric position. But yeah, bands can be a very effective tool, just like a dumbbell. But it's kind of like a hammer. It can do some great things for building or taking apart, but it can also destroy things depending on how you use them. So any fast, uncontrolled motion starting out, just going to kind of put you at risk. So with bands, just think, what is the goal? And then try to be very slow and precise. And you can also, you can create more internal tension by squeezing the muscles that you're trying to target harder than you need to, because you'll get that co-contraction on the other side of the joint. So then you have more tension inside your body. So it's almost like if that band was 10 pounds of resistance and you're squeezing, let's say we're just doing a basic bicep curl. So if I were to squeeze my arm, flex my arm as hard as I could, I wouldn't slap myself in the face, right? Because I have the co-contraction on the backside of that joint. So if I'm squeezing as hard as I can on the other side, I'm creating more resistance for this front side if we're doing a bicep curl or elbow flexion. So that's a way we can generate a lot more internal tension and be precise with how we train. Same thing for a row. But I also like to bring up like a bicep curl, because I've heard strength coaches say, "Oh, we don't work pretty muscles," and it's like, you idiot, that crosses the elbow joint. So clearly, it helps with elbow flexion. The bicep helps with internal rotation. It also does some shoulder flexion, some glenohumeral flexion. So, you know, every muscle is a stabilizer muscle. We hear that too. Is this working my stabilizers? Yes, every muscle is a stabilizer muscle. But the more you can focus on increasing the tension internally while you're pulling on that band or pushing on it, the more you can get out of just that little tool of, you know, that band or elastomer. So yeah, they can be incredible tools if you use them with a purpose.
I like that. I like the purpose. Yep, for sure.
Intention. It's always about intention.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important because you're right. You're finding, especially a lot of youth players out there that use them pre-game, pre-practice, but then also at home for almost like a strength training component or whatever. And so I would think in my mind that pre-game, pre-practice would be different than post-game or for a strengthening program.
Yeah. So pre-game, you'd want to go with a lighter amount of resistance, because strength is not the goal. So again, just thinking, what is the goal? So getting the muscles contracting, getting them firing, because again, stretching is going to shut them down. So then, you know, thinking, what is the goal of the stretching? Well, it's not doing what people think it's doing. So if we do have the bands to put more tension into the muscular system and stabilize joints before we perform, everything is going to function a lot better. So definitely lighter resistance, maybe higher rep before practice or game. But then when you're not playing, maybe off season, or, you know, when you're getting your strength stuff in, you can certainly have a lot more tension on the band, because again, whether if you're pushing or pulling, whether it's 50 pounds of resistance with a dumbbell or 50 pounds with a band, it's still 50 pounds of resistance. So that's why they can be some really incredible tools to train with. I use them a lot for generating rotational power, because with, you know, free weights or a cable, if we yank on it, we get that inertia and the weight goes up and comes down. But if you're using a band, you don't have to worry about that. And you can also change kind of the point of application. So you can have it closer to your body, farther from your body, you know, and kind of modify how you're generating torque from the ground up, versus with a dumbbell or medicine ball. When you drop those, they go down, right? Because gravity, that's their force angle. But the awesome thing about an elastomer is whatever that line is where the elastomer is going, that's your line of force. So it's very easy to identify, you know, how you can precisely apply force in the right angle so you get the desired outcome, and, you know, actually train with intention, versus, you know, chucking and slamming medicine balls, which I see 3-year-olds do that. So maybe they should be strength coaches, because that's what these D1 and, you know, national championship programs are doing. They're just chucking and slamming medicine balls. Yeah, and some of these coaches are throwing tantrums like 3-year-olds too. So I guess it's no difference.
Yeah, it's crazy what's going on out there and stuff like that. And I get as the individual, you get that own, I guess, ego and mindset and belief of what you're doing and what you're teaching, but also, I guess, what's expected of you depending on where you're employed, stuff like that. So it's a vicious cycle for sure. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. Strengthening, conditioning, training on that part of it. And if possible, whenever possible, you know, divided into basically what middle school, high school, college, and pro type of things. So, you know, just simple little things to start off with, Jason, like squats. We take them for granted, but, you know, what should squats look like based on from a middle school kid to a pro kid or pro player? You know, we see the same training going on almost across the board, don't we? We don't take into age, growth, everything like that. So go ahead.
Yeah, oh man, there's so much we could dive into. It's a real can of worms for sure. So at the middle school level, or when you're getting them started, again, elastomers are incredible training tools. As far as adding load, like having them squat with weight, or, you know, trying out barbell work. Barbells are actually really crappy tools for training, because you're limited in your hand position and kind of, you know, again, you have one force angle, that's gravity, so straight down. So as far as working on lateral explosion, first step explosion, things like that. Bands really give us a great opportunity to be precise with how we're applying force. I've seen some speed and agility camps that are done by coaches, and they're running these kids to death in the summertime or indoors. After the first 20, 30 seconds, all your whatever you think is your fast twitch, your speed, your agility, that's gone out the window. And now it just turns into your ego of trying to beat down a bunch of kids, which is just not safe. It's counterproductive. But coaches really need to stay in their lane. And unfortunately, a lot of strength coaches, they still don't know that. And again, remember, just because somebody has certifications, just because they can pass that test doesn't mean they have the common sense or intelligence to apply the knowledge. So with kids, we want to stay away from using a lot of load unless you know for sure that first, are they able to go into that range? Are you forcing them into a range where they can't actively get to on their own? Because you have to understand there are going to be some structural limitations. Not only that, but what is the goal? There definitely has to be a goal. But if we're doing a lot of like unilateral stuff, like one leg explosion up off of a box, you're having to do a lot more with the pelvis and trunk. So that unilateral or one-sided activity is going to benefit you a lot more than if you were doing a squat or a deadlift. Because when you swing, you have pelvic and trunk motion. When you run, when you throw, you get a pelvic shift, especially when you're running. So if we can train that and to push off with that one leg and have to stabilize, the pelvis and the trunk all the way up through the chain as you're doing that movement, that's going to be a lot more productive for these kids from a developmental standpoint. So doing that is going to be a lot better and help them a lot more and be a lot safer than just trying to, get a barbell on them. I heard somebody say about CrossFit years ago, I won't share my thoughts. I know they're quick to sue people, but I see the injuries all the time. But they said, oh, it's got a barbell in more people's hands than anything else. Well, it's a really stupid thing to say because people don't need a barbell in their hands. They might need to start out with a band or a very light dumbbell or probably, a machine. So definitely not adding too much load and definitely not trying to stretch these kids out at a young age, especially going back into like external rotation. I think Mike Reinhold put out some great information on the effects of weighted baseballs as far as causing humeral torsion. That can be achieved with also stretching, and that's not something we want to happen. So what happens is the humerus twists because you're putting so much force on it. And remember, bones adapt to force. So they get more external rotation because we've now kind of deformed, the structure of that bone. So moving from middle school into, the high school age, we still have a lot of kids that are, still growing, still might have some issues with growing pains. So the reason growing pains happen, and I get a lot of younger athletes in here with elbow or shoulder pain. So growing pains happen because the bones grow at a faster rate than the muscles. So maybe the primary movers or the ones that have the most mechanical advantage or are better at moving that limb, they become tired or something else becomes tired. So some muscles are pulling so tight that they're actually pulling on that growth plate. You can get what's called an epiphyseal fracture. So we know Sever's disease, Osgood-Schlatters, things like that. So again, I see these athletes that come in with elbow or shoulder pain, and if they're not able to push off the ground to generate that force through the throwing motion, they have to make up for that lack of force output somewhere up the chain, and that usually falls on the arm. So that's why we're seeing a lot of the little league elbow, little league shoulder. So to try to add force, while these kids are already having growing pains or some other kind of issue, it's really not accelerating the injury rate and the process of which is going to injure them. So with the high school kids, if they can tolerate that force into their system, then it's fine. But definitely, strength coaches and coaches don't go straight to maxing out. There's absolutely no reason. People can talk about, all their qualifications. I had a strength coach that has USA 1 weightlifting, his CSCS, trained with a lot of Olympic athletes or Olympic training programs around the world. And he wanted us to max out. Well, I never would have maxed out. And then with maxing out, we got to remember there's a risk versus reward that we got to think about. So definitely a point of diminishing return or point of failure. So if they get that lift, that's great. It's kind of like beating level 12 on a video game. Nobody really cares. And there's a lot of other people that are a lot stronger than you. So if they're finding that they have to have them maxed out to calculate their 5 rep max, they got to use this thing up here called their brain, turn the damn thing on and think, why don't I just have them do 5 reps at a time? And then we can see, where they potentially fail, or that's, where we need to stop adding weight. And by the way, that strength coach, I don't know if you can see that scar right there, but I ripped my pec off the bone. So we had Kyle Bodie come out at Pitchapalooza and say, don't be afraid to be wrong. That's by far the most stupid, dangerous, and disgusting thing I've ever heard someone of influence say to a bunch of coaches and strength coaches, because that strength coach I had, he wasn't afraid to be wrong, and I ripped my pec off the bone. So coaches, think about it. Don't ever think I'm not afraid to be wrong. You need to be as cautious as possible, because it affects their life, it affects their career, and it can affect a lot more than that you're not aware of. So definitely be careful, and don't ever listen to someone that says, don't be afraid to be wrong. Stay within a safe range, do what is not going to harm anybody. And it really should be, do no harm. And again, there's no point in maxing out. And now we've got strength coaches that are having kids load up a hex bar for deadlifts, jump up with it, and then try to stick the landing before it hits the ground. Got a private school down the road here. Of course, he's got short man syndrome, these little strength coaches, big egos. And there's a lot of injuries. These kids are having to have surgery, all because that coach wasn't afraid to be wrong. I've heard a lot of strength coaches, some, with a lot of influence, discount the use of machines. It really displays their ignorance, because machines are incredible ways to utilize restraint and support and precisely apply force. What I mean by that is, one of these really popular strength coaches made a comment on social media about a rotary torso machine. He's also loving doing heavy Olympic lifts, which is really stupid, because you're putting a lot of force through the shoulder and elbow, which you kind of need for throwing. He also made some comments about, front squats. Why would you front squat? What's the point? But when he made the comment about using a rotary torso machine, it just shows his ignorance in that he doesn't understand how to apply force. If your strength program, especially at the college level, I've had some guys in here from a national championship team, they got more out of what we did, and we didn't touch a barbell. We didn't slam any medicine balls. We used bands or elastomers. So their coach, the strength coach, had them, throwing heavy bars around and chucking medicine balls. But back to the machine, if we wanted to work on hip shoulder separation or trunk rotation, what if that athlete had pain through their elbow or their shoulder, and our point of application is out here at the hand? Now we can make that worse. We could contribute to injury, at those joints. So with a machine, we can remove joints. We can also modify torque, which clearly he doesn't understand. But again, I always say that the loudest fart gets the most attention. So these guys, just because they got to the top of the hill first, it doesn't mean they belong there. So coaches, machines, if you have access to them, for these, maybe some junior high kids, if they're, going at lightweight high reps. But as far as high school, college, pro guys, machines are incredible tools to use. But in the strength world, we hear people say, oh, those aren't functional. Well, I guess what I do is all dysfunctional then, but I've got several world champions and a lot of $1 million, $100 million athletes. And guess what? They're going out and they're dominating and doing well. And we're not throwing barbells around. We're not chucking and slamming medicine balls. So the industry as a whole needs to step back. And I had one local travel ball coach say, oh, well, we're talking about stretching and, how I'm trying to educate him on how that actually decreases force output and shuts muscles down. He said, oh, well, we got our program from a college strength coach. I don't give a damn where you got it from. It doesn't mean it's correct. I got pro guys that'll come in here and say, I'm not doing hang cleans. I'm not doing, this barbell exercise, this barbell exercise. I said, great. I don't think there's any reason for you to do those, especially if you got to this level without doing them. So, as you get to the professional level, unfortunately, in the world of strength coaches, it doesn't get any better. I've seen it firsthand. I've had a lot of guys come in here and, some of these strength coaches that tell you to do all the heavy lifting, I know one of them just had to have surgery from what he's telling people to do. So, I could go on and on about that, but what else? Anything
No,
else
I
we don't
mean,
have on?
yeah, no, and that's awesome. I personally learned something from you every time we talk and stuff like that, and that's why it's so valuable to have you on here with the Dirtbag Baseball Talk and us, Jason, because dirtbags, we understand that you're still getting to learn who we are and build that trust. But I think there was a reason why Jason and I did it the way we did, and we put a lot of thought into it, and we knew that sometimes we had to tell you what you needed to hear not what you necessarily wanted to hear. For one phrase, maybe another phrase to smack you between the eyes or whatever, put a bit of humor in it, but get your attention, and that's it. And again, Jason, there could be a lot of people out there watching this right now that are nervous or scared. And you and I both know that. We talk about that a lot, right? People that are afraid to reach out to us and ask for help or get the guidance and stuff like that. Again, there might be a new watcher, a new viewer, or even the returners. Again, where can they reach out to you to really go ahead and explore what you were saying a little deeper? How can they find you, Jason?
So on our the Kinetic Arm YouTube, I'm going to start updating it. I've got a great explanation of shoulder structure and function on there, so that'll help everyone understand why, you know, stretching the life out of your shoulder is going to be counterproductive and probably lead to injury. So through the YouTube, you know, through Dirtbag Nation, you can certainly go to the website kineticarm.com. But again, just a reminder, I don't have a big social media following because I'm busy fixing the mistakes from these orthopedic surgeons, from these physical therapists, from these strength coaches. Everyone's a strength coach. So I'm the guy in the trenches that sees these injuries and has to solve these problems on a daily basis. I'm sure it's great and fun to crank out a lot of content like these guys do. And by the way, a lot of it's absolutely terrible because they don't understand what they're actually trying to say. So use me as a resource, use us as a resource. Because again, I've got plenty of experience. These guys come in with their programs they spent thousands of dollars on, and then I put them on the table and start doing some muscle testing, and they're a complete wreck. So they just pissed away thousands of dollars on these programs because these guys want to talk about, you have to have this much internal rotation here, you have to have this, and they're not smart enough to understand, even though they have their masters and their doctorates, that if your joints don't move that way, you can't force it to go that way, and if you do, you're going to cause a lot more harm than good. So definitely use us as a resource. Reach out through, the kineticarm.com website, through our social media, Instagram, Facebook, Kinetic Arm, or, you know, send questions through you, and we'll be more than happy to, you know, tackle those questions and get some actual actionable information to you versus just spouting off things from research papers.
That's fantastic. And like Jason said, it doesn't matter whether you're a player, a parent, or a coach. Just let us know who you are, how you're coming into us, how you're reaching out to us. And then that way we can take you down that road and help you build a program for you, again, as a player, help your son, daughter as a parent. And if you're the coach and, hey, oh my God, maybe the light switch went on and I'm doing things all wrong, or maybe I got some things that are right. Maybe I got some things that I'm not just sure if I have right. Now I have a contact. Now I have a network. We can go ahead and we can get in touch with Jason and make sure I'm doing the right things for my athletes, for my future people. Because again, at the youth level, hey, they're athletes and they're always athletes, right? And that's it. Yeah, I think that's the one thing for sure we can agree on, Jason. You want to be a well-rounded athlete, be able to adapt. Those greatest ones in the world, they can play a lot of sports. They can play a lot of different sports. They get paid in one sport, but they're athletes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So next episode, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start diving down the pitching area, talking about that, Jason, myself. So make sure you're back with us again. Share this, please share it for us and that, get it out there and stuff like that. That's the whole reason we're doing it, is to help out as many people, build that trust network with as many of you and get your self personally or your young son or daughter or your players going in the right direction and helping out any way we can. So again, Jason and I can't thank you enough for listening, watching, being a part of it. Send those questions in. Do not be afraid. I know that's the biggest obstacle. I know it. Don't be afraid. We're you and I, and you are us, and that's how it works. And that's the thing. We're just a bunch of baseball guys that want to help you out and get you going down the right path. So until the next episode, we can't thank you enough. Till the next episode, you do know what time of the week it is. It's time to get up, get after it, and get dirty.